Today we're going to have a look at the Nihilakh Dynasty Previews, Doomsday Arks and Lychguard.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, another Dynasty Preview video for you, and today we're going to look at the Nihilakh Dynasty. Before that though, if you would like to keep up to date with the wonders of Warhammer 40k, then please give me a sub and hit the bell button so you don't miss an upload. Okay, so the Nihilakh Dynasty, dubbed by GW as the traditional Necron force, an immovable, immortal gun line. And the Dynasty rules are, if you stand still, you can re-roll the ones to hit, and that's even in Overwatch. Now, I've gone through all of the Dynasty rules in a previous video, and in that video I did say that I thought the Nihilakh Dynasty was the worst of the 5 dynasties. Now, I didn't say that it was a bad dynasty, I was just saying that the others are probably a little bit better. However, in today's video we're going to have a look at the previewed unit that probably will benefit the most from this particular dynasty, and that's the Doomsday Ark. Now, before we look at the Doomsday Ark, I'm just going to read this paragraph that's in the preview. It says, "From the humble Necron warrior right up to your annihilation barge, there are few units in your army that won't benefit from re-rolling ones to hit. One unit in particular truly shines in the Nihilakh army, and that's the Doomsday Ark. Of course, the Doomsday Ark has a very long gun, so it can stand still quite easily, but your Necron warriors, your immortals, they don't really going to want to stand still that much, unless potentially you're just holding objectives in the backfields. However, some of the other dynasty traits possibly would actually be better in those situations anyway. However, the Doomsday Ark is definitely going to benefit because of that long range gun. Okay, so the Doomsday Ark. In the new Necron Codex, the Doomsday Cannon has been upgraded to properly live up to its name, and it is quite possibly one of the deadliest ranged weapons in the entire game. Now working just as effectively against small units and single models as it is larger squads. And then we have a comparison data sheet from Index to Codex. Now, the Doomsday Cannon can shoot in 2 ways. If you stand still, you have a big gun, high powered, which is 72 inches, no change there. Now, previously it was a heavy D3. One problem with the Doomsday Ark previously was that D3 amount of shots. Sometimes 1, sometimes 3. You don't really want to spend a command point to re-roll that dice, and the reason for that is the damage output is a D6. So once again, you're probably going to be holding out to re-roll the damage output rather than the actual hits. However, the new version of that gun has D6 amount of shots as opposed to D3. So you've got a chance of getting more bullets out. I think I would rather have seen it have a fixed amount, maybe 3 shots rather than the D6. I think a straight 3 shots would have been a lot better. The damage is still D6. Well, fair enough, you still have to maybe roll your command point to try and get some good damage, but I think the amount of shots coming out would be better off having a fixed 3. However, we've got D6 shots doing D6 damage. You have the potential to do a lot of damage. You also have the potential to do badly with this particular gun. However, what about the smaller gun? Okay, so the low powered version of this gun, bearing in mind that you can move and shoot the low powered version, and you can't do that with the higher powered one, you have to stand still, but the lower powered one has now been increased in range, which is very much welcome. 24 inches was the previous range, and now it's 36 inches, and 36 inches really means you can take advantage of this dynasty code. Not moving and being able to re-roll the ones is definitely more doable now with the longer ranged gun, but not only that, the amount of shots have been increased from D3 to D6, making the smaller gun a lot more deadlier than it was previously. The strength stayed the same, strength 8 for the small gun and strength 10 for the big gun. And the AP has stayed the same, -2 for the small gun and -5 for the big gun. There is another little paragraph. It says, "Cleaving through the armour with ease and shrugging off damage with quantum shielding, every Nihilakh army will want a couple of these Doomsday Arks." Well, of course they want a couple. you want to sell as many models as possible. Even if you end up taking damage, you'll be able to keep firing with unerring accuracy thanks to damage control override. And this is another new stratagem. Okay, so another stratagem, and this is a Necron's stratagem rather than a Dynasty stratagem, and again, just 1 point. And the stratagem is, use this stratagem at the start of any turn. Pick a Necron's vehicle from your army, and to the end of this turn, use the top row of that vehicle's damage table, regardless of how many wounds it has left. This ends immediately if the model is reduced to 0 wounds. Now that sounds pretty good to me for 1 command point. And I have to say, from the stratagems that I've seen so far, I'm really happy how they're coming along. They seem very thematic for Necrons. They seem like it's the type of technology that Necrons would have, and they seem like they can really enhance the army. And this is another great example. You have a tank. It doesn't have to be the Doomsday Ark. One of the other tanks on just a few wounds, but use 1 command point and shoot that tank at its full capacity. I think that's very powerful, very useful, especially towards the end of the game where maybe your vehicles are on their last legs, they're not shooting very well, all of a sudden you've got a unit to kill, to take off an objective, 1 command point and your tank is shooting at full power. I like that command point a lot. Okay, so they end that section of the preview by saying, of course, a gun line is all well and good, but you'll need a contingency plan for any enemies that can set up close to your lines, for those units that can weather your firepower, like Imperial Knights. For that, Lychguard offer a somewhat insidious solution. Okay, so Lychguard have always been an invaluable unit for Necron players, providing value support to nearby leaders, possessing excellent durability and even intercepting wounds. But why include them in the Nihilakh army, which focuses largely on shooting? For one, Lychguard are a fantastic counter-assault unit. You'll want to keep a line of them around your most valuable vehicles to prevent them from being charged. Where they really shine is when you begin to combine them with the new stratagems in the Codex.
Necrons!
Stratagem time again, and this one is actually a 2 command point one. Dispersion Field Amplification. Use this stratagem in the shooting phase when an enemy unit targets a unit of Lychguard from your army equipped with dispersion shields. Your unit's invulnerable save is improved to a 3+ until the end of the phase. In addition, until the end of the phase, each time you roll an unmodified 6 for this unit's invulnerable save, the unit that made the attack suffers a mortal wound after it has finished making all of its shooting attacks. That does sound pretty good. It is a shame that we just don't have that 3+ invulnerable save back on the shield like we used to. At least we can get it, but 2 command points. I think it depends on the type of unit that's actually shooting at you. If you're being targeted with a high volume amount of shots, it may be worth using those 2 command points in hope that you get the 6s on your saves to cause damage back. However, 2 command points is quite a big commitment when we have lots of other really good 1-point stratagems. But the stratagems don't end there. We now have another one revealed, another 2 command point one. And it says, if you really don't want your Lychguard to die, you could even combine it with Reclaim a Lost Empire. Use this stratagem at the end of your turn. Select a Nihilakh unit from your army. If the unit is within 3 inches of an objective marker, or if it did not move for any reason during this turn, then until the start of your next turn, add 1 to the saving throws made for that unit and increase the attack's characteristic of the model by 1. Now that is pretty good once again. That turns your Lychguard invulnerable save into a 2+ and gives them an extra attack. 2 command points is still quite costly, but that could be really useful for end of game if you have Lychguard on an objective and you just don't want them to die. However, this is a Nihilakh stratagem, so potentially how about we have Nihilakh Wraiths, turning that 3+ invulnerable save into a 2+ invulnerable save. It's a lot of command points. You'd have to be quite timely when you use that particular stratagem, but it's a potential option. Okay, so then the preview just winds down saying Nihilakh are the ideal Necron dynasty for players looking to field a defensive force with the firepower to punish anyone that comes close and is capable of holding the line in every direst of circumstances. And yes, that's sort of what it's about. It's about standing still and shooting, re-rolling the ones. Very powerful, but how often are you going to stand still with a Necron army? And if your enemy does get close, we've got some other very nice dynasties designed for close range shooting. I think it definitely has a place in the army, especially if you're taking a small detachment with a couple of Doomsday Arks, taking full advantage of the dynasty code. However, I don't think it is the best one that's available to us. Now we have one more dynasty code to go, and that's the Nihilakh Dynasty. So make sure you tune in for tomorrow's video. Beam me up!